Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Kitimat RCMP recently put a new weekly report out. BC government employees may have had their personal information leaked, and the search for some missing hikers continues.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cal Maslin. Here's what's making news in the Northwest and beyond for today. The Kitimat RCMP recently publicized their newest weekly report, and it featured several driving incidents. One such road incident saw a vehicle get stopped in the afternoon after police were informed by a report about it, and when a breathalyzer test was administered to the driver, the test was a fail, and the driver got a 90-day roadside driving prohibition. Their vehicle was impounded for 30 days, and a ticket was given for the vehicle not being insured either. The report also discussed another case which saw a driver on the 900 block of Waukesha Avenue leave a parking lot and bump into a white SUV, exchange information with its owner due to some slight damages being caused. But then the SUV left the scene, and while police did talk to the first driver, they did not have contact with the SUV owner. Some new anti-scab legislation, officially labeled as Bill C-58, was passed not too long ago, and Skeena-Bulkley Valley MP Taylor Backrack is said to be quite pleased with this development. The bill aims to prevent federally regulated workplaces from using replacement workers if their regular employees happen to go on strike, and it was passed in the House of Commons with unanimous support. Backrack's pleasure of this bill passing comes from himself, his fellow NDP members, and organized labor supporters working for years on being advocates for such a law. Although Backrack last said that this bill is one of 9 total that were introduced by the NDP in a 15-year span. The personal information of several BC government employees may have been compromised during the recent cyber attack, a crime believed to be carried out sponsored by another country. It's a hack job that experts say will likely cost the province tens of millions of dollars. Ben Nesbitt has the latest on the investigation.
The BC government says around 1.5 billion hack attempts are made on its systems every single day, and recently, someone got in.
I can confirm that 22 email boxes may have been accessed by the actor during the incident.
The Minister of Public Safety says a handful of those inboxes contain sensitive information on 19 people. All but one were government employee files. Farnworth says it does not appear, at least for now, that any of the public's information was accessed. The hackers are believed to be funded and from another country.
It was a very sophisticated attack on government systems.
A sophisticated attack that will likely cost tens of millions of dollars to clean up, according to cybersecurity expert David Shipley.
The challenge now is proving to a level of confidence sufficient for the government that they are truly out of the system, that they got them, that they expunged all possible different ways, backdoors, other things out of systems, and that is expensive.
Microsoft is the province's service provider. Shipley says only Russia and China have been able to infiltrate that network to such a significant extent.
Foreign interference using digital means is among the top priorities for hostile nations. And we need to invest in this. We need to invest in this not just nationally, but provincially and even municipally.
Shipley says that with a provincial election coming up, people should be questioning candidates about cybersecurity funding and what the government is doing to help ensure that the public's personal information is safe. Ben Nesbitt, CTV News, Vancouver.
Coming up next, some new BC road laws have come into effect. Welcome back. A new law protecting vulnerable road users in BC is officially in effect. That means drivers will have to keep a safe distance while passing pedestrians and cyclists. As CTV's Brendan Strait explains, you could face steep fines if you don't mind the gap.
As of today, it is now law when passing a cyclist or pedestrian on the road that is limited to 50 kilometers per hour or below. You must give them 1 meter of space.
The meter is actually measured from the farthest protruding object on your vehicle, so it's generally the mirror.
Kate Harris is the owner of DriveWise BC and says for drivers on roads exceeding that speed limit, that distance increases to 1.5 meters.
It's getting really busy out there. We have e-bikes, we have motorized scooters. When you're increasing space, everybody wins.
The new law that came into effect today comes with fines under the Motor Vehicle Act. Drivers who pass closer than the mandatory distance can face a fine starting at $368 and 3 penalty points on your license. The maximum allowable fine under the new law is $2,000 and 6 months imprisonment.
On the whole, this is good.
Joel Sater is with Capital Bikes, the cycling advocacy group. He says anything that protects those sharing our roadways with cars is a good thing. He does have questions though.
We have some concerns around enforcement. It's going to be hard to enforce this just inherently.
It's a question that the Saanich Police Department is contemplating as well.
Yes, certainly will be challenging at times.
Saanich Police says the new law will be enforced on a case-by-case basis.
That might look like gathering witness statements, perhaps there's video surveillance. An investigation will take place to find out exactly what happened, and we'll come to a conclusion.
With any new rule, the department says enforcement will begin with education until drivers have had time to become aware of the new law. What about those solid lines that drivers in the past have not been allowed to navigate out of?
In this case, in order to give vulnerable road users more space, if you need to cross over that, you're allowed to do that if it's safe to do so.
Although you must signal in and out of your lane. Fittingly, today marks the kickoff of Go by Bike Week, encouraging everyone in the capital region to try cycling as their main mode of transportation.
This is our spring edition. It's our biggest Go by Bike Week of the year.
With thousands of cyclists expecting to hit the roads in the capital this week, drivers now have a new law to consider when making a pass. Brendan Strain, CTV News, Saanich.
One of Vancouver's proudest accomplishments was front and center in the city recently. It's been a decade since the city began working towards reconciliation with local First Nations, and now there's a new strategy recognizing the UN's Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Gabriella Panza-Beltrandi has the details.
Saying this is what their ancestors dreamt of, an action plan to solidify First Nations rights in Vancouver. The city unveiled its 5-year plan today alongside the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations.
It's about putting our identity back on the map. It's also about the rebuilding of Indigenous economies, and sometimes that comes with understanding of who we are.
Its goal, improve Indigenous people's rights in the city, like affordable housing, providing power and sewage services so homes can be built.
We have over 380 community members that are waiting for a house in our community right now. So working on with the city and helping get those services to our community so that we can build the houses, which will free up housing in other areas.
The action plan also addresses areas like environmental racism and improving First Nations relationships with Vancouver police. It would give First Nations more control over doing business in the city, their education, and native art.
It's almost like having that magic wand and saying, now, you come to us and, we'll share. We've rolled up our sleeves. We've made it clear that our door is open for business.
The city councillors are committed to the action plan and will vote on whether to adopt it later this month. Gabriella Panza-Beltrandi, CTV News, Vancouver.
There is still no sign of 3 hikers missing in Garibaldi Park. They went missing back on Friday and no one has heard from them since then. CTV's Ben Bilger has more on the ambitious trek the group had planned and the conditions making the effort to find them so difficult.
With sea to sky country under a rainfall warning, mountain peaks are socked in with low-lying clouds, keeping helicopters grounded. The avalanche danger in the Alpine is also very high, meaning the weather is hampering search efforts through the air and on the ground. 3 people who ventured into the Garibaldi wilderness did not return as expected on Friday, and someone who knows them called the RCMP, who reached out to Squamish Search and Rescue. The mountaineers had been attempting to scale Atwell Peak, a technically challenging and potentially dangerous climb at high elevation with an unstable snowpack.
It's unrealistic to send people into technical terrain such as this with a high avalanche hazard when we can't see above us and mitigate any of those avalanche hazards.
The search is considered active and ongoing, with helicopter crews on standby. When it is deemed safe, ground crews will be airlifted into the Alpine for an extensive search.
The bags are packed and the guys are ready to go at a moment's notice should the weather improve and give us an opportunity to get up into a helicopter and to fly. When that happens, we just simply don't know.
The worst of this weather is not expected to break until sometime Tuesday or possibly even Wednesday, meaning it could take that long for search crews to access the area where the missing trio is believed to be. In the meantime, the physical condition of those lost mountaineers remains unknown. Ben Milcher, CTV News, Squamish.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast is supposed to deal with rain and a low at 9 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will likely get periods of rain and a low of 7 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District is also set to see a chance of showers and a low at 1 degree. On the North Coast, the week for them will get a brief bit of sun but have rain and clouds otherwise, and a high bouncing from 10 to 16 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, their upcoming week will consist of rain to begin before going back and forth between sun and clouds, and the high will shift from 12 to 22 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the next week or so will deal with a little bit of rain, but a mix of cloud and sun otherwise, while their high moves between 13 and 24 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, road sweeping, construction work, roadside brushing, and paving operations. Highway 35 has some bridge maintenance. Highway 37 has some road sweeping, road maintenance work, roadside brushing, and frost heaves. Some more road maintenance work on the Nishka Highway, and the Telegraph Creek Road has both muddy sections and frost heaves. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, a fan at the Canadian Open golf tourney got the surprise of a lifetime. Welcome back. The federal government is now working to help protect endangered southern resident killer whales. The feds are supporting a program helping reduce the impact of commercial shipping on the whales and their habitat. CTV's Adam McMillan reports.
There are just 75 southern resident killer whales left, and they're in serious need of some peace and quiet.
The more noise there is, the harder it is for them to find their food, particularly if food are scarce.
That's why the federal government is supporting a program that turns down the volume in the waters off Vancouver Island.
The federal government, through Transport Canada, is providing $3.2 million over 2 years to the Vancouver-Fraser Port Authority to continue the important work done through the ECHO program.
The ECHO program coordinates slowdown zones for ships in the Harrow Strait, Boundary Pass, and Swiftshire Bank.
Underwater noise has been reduced by 44 to 62% in key areas of southern resident killer whale critical habitat.
While the feds have some mandatory speed-restricted zones, the ones ECHO coordinates are voluntary.
The industry also has proven that it wants to do what's right in protecting the whales.
A win when considering how long it can take to establish formal regulations.
I was quite surprised to see how high the compliance was. I came from this from the point of view of thinking that regulations were the way to go, and that's what it would take. And I've become a convert, really, to this other system, really.
That ECHO Advisory Committee member says slowdown zones help, but there's more to do.
Ships need to be quieter. That's eminently technologically feasible.
So there's hope for the southern residents.
As long as there's a will, and the will is still pretty strong on multiple players' parts, yes, then I think we can bring underwater noise down substantially and really help the southern resident killer whales out.
Anna McMillan, CTV News.
Most items at the grocery store have seen major price increases the last 2 years, but there may be more bigger sticker shock right now than olive oil. It's a big financial hit for restaurants relying on high-quality olive oil for their dishes. CTV's Shannon Patterson reports.
At Hydra Estiatorio in downtown Vancouver, every dish is prepared or finished with olive oil.
Our menu, being Mediterranean and focused on seafood, is very simple. We only have a handful of ingredients, but really high quality olive oil is literally the backbone of the restaurant.
And it's also become a big part of this Greek restaurant's budget.
We've seen a huge increase in the past year of olive oil.
We see olive oil prices double in just the last few years. In fact, since January, olive oil prices have actually gone up by as much as 26%.
That price hike blamed on the impact of climate change in olive-producing Mediterranean countries.
We've seen cold, wet springs, and then we've had very dry summers, which has affected the setting of the fruit. Spain is the largest exporter of olive oil, and their production last year was down 60%. Simple economics 101, when supply goes down, price goes up.
We've had some of our vendors who have been able to provide us with extremely high quality single origin olive oil in the past have said at the current prices, they're just not importing it. They're not able to seek it out at any price.
The price and scarcity has some consumers seeking olive oil alternatives like avocado or sunflower oil.
A few years ago, those oils were as expensive, but not anymore. They're actually cheaper now.
It's much more difficult for a restaurant to make a substitution than it is for us as individuals at home, because we understand we're making that substitution. So restaurants either need to pass those prices on or absorb those costs.
We have kept our prices stable, and we've just absorbed the decreased margins, unfortunately.
And it's unlikely there's much relief on the horizon.
Unless conditions improve in Europe this summer versus the last couple, we're going to see prices continue to go up.
For a restaurant that prides itself on only using top-notch olive oil, it's the cost of doing business. Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
The Canadian Open has wrapped up in Hamilton, Ontario, with one local fan feeling like the true tournament winner. On Sunday morning, he went from being a spectator to working as a caddy. CTV's Mike Walker explains.
An amazing amount of messages.
Paul Emerson says the messages and phone calls have been constant after an unimaginable experience at the PGA's Canadian Open.
So fan is now putting on the caddy bib.
That felt like something out of a movie.
We watched Shane Lowry and CTPN hit their approach shots. Then we started walking up the hole to catch them at the green. And then we heard a loud thud and groan.
Emerson quickly found himself inside the ropes on the third hole, donning a caddy's bib after pro golfer C.T. Pan's caddy suffered an injury and couldn't continue.
So as he approached the ropes, I simply said to C.T. Pan, I said, "Do you need help?" And he said, "Yes." I can't believe that I'm caddying at the RBC Canadian Open. My heart started pumping pretty good.
For 2 holes, the lawyer from Aurora subbed in for well-known caddy Mike Cowan, who has carried clubs for Tiger Woods in the past, lugging Pan's equipment around the Hamilton Golf and Country Club.
CT at that moment recommended that I just, stay off of the greens. Certainly there was no reason to believe he would ask me for tips. And if he had ever seen me play, he would know not to.
A rare moment captured by the TV cameras and broadcast for the world to see, and the messages were instant.
So actually I mentioned to CT Pan, I said, I think we must be in a featured group because my watch is going crazy. And he said, yeah, maybe you should take it off. And I agreed, but then 2 moments later I got replaced, so.
He was relieved on the 5th hole by a member of the caddy services team, returning to being a fan with a tale to tell.
A lot of people were reaching out as I was trying to enjoy the round as a fan. Just kept getting high fives and people asking for selfies. So that was a definitely unique experience, feeling like someone people knew.
Golf Canada has offered Emerson an opportunity to play around at the site of next year's Canadian Open, which he has gladly accepted. Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 25 tenths of a cent. The price of gold is down $21.90. Oil is down 97 cents, natural gas is down 17 cents, aluminum is up $9. In Toronto, the TSX is down 138.51 points, the Venture Index is down 10.49. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 140.26, and Nasdaq is up 28.38. Still ahead, the 111th Grey Cup officially has its halftime show set. Welcome back. Tickets to the 111th Grey Cup at BC Place are on sale today, and in another recent announcement, festival organizers revealed who the event's halftime show will be. It's a big-name act that may appeal to an audience not traditionally associated with the CFL. Shannon Patterson reports.
In the 10 years since Vancouver last hosted Grey Cup, the festival's gotten bigger and the halftime act more important.
Over the years, halftimes have been, all over the map. There's been a lot of country artists, a lot of high-end country artists, and last year's show was, Green Day was awesome as well. But this one, it's just a bit of a different style of show.
We're going to announce who is going to be performing at the halftime show. We have a video now. Let's roll it.
I'm a sucker for you.
The Jonas Brothers will perform at BC Place for Grey Cup halftime on November 17th.
We love it. We think it's going to appeal to a different audience, and we're excited about it.
They've sold 20 million albums around the world, so you can't argue with their success. I know personally my daughters have all texted me all morning wanting to confirm that they're coming to the game because they want to see the Jonas Brothers.
The BC Lions owner was involved in picking the Jonas Brothers for Grey Cup halftime.
He was one of the driving forces to make this choice.
He's the one bringing 50 Cent to BC Place for the Lions home opener on June 15th. More than 50,000 tickets have already been sold for that game.
We just announced 50 Cent last week. It was a week ago, and by less than a week we're into the 50s. So we have very good feelings about announcing our artist today for halftime with the Jonas Brothers.
Grey Cup tickets go on sale Tuesday at 2 p.m. They start at $99.
We think it's going to be a sold-out Grey Cup here in Vancouver and hosted by this beautiful city.
Hosting a Grey Cup for Vancouver is significant for a city. Here's what we know from the last Grey Cup, which was a 6-day festival, and that was about $74 million in estimated incremental economic impact. Ours is 8 days.
We're estimating a minimum $100 million economic impact. We know that the hotels will all be full and everyone will be having a good time.
Lions fans will have an even better time if, like in 2011, the home team makes it to the Grey Cup and wins.
They want to be in that big game. They got a very competitive team. So, I think they'll have something to say about who plays in the Grey Cup this year.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, Vancouver.
The BC government will cover the cost of an antiviral drug aiming to treat mild to moderate cases of COVID after Ottawa ended their coverage. The health ministry said BC will provide full coverage for the drug Paxlovid for BC residents with a medical services plan. A provincial government webpage says the change took effect last week after the federal government stopped supplying the drug in March. The drug is recommended for people with a higher risk of serious illness and hospitalization due to COVID, and the health ministry says treatment must begin within 5 days of the start of symptoms to be effective. The BC government has decided to expand a whistleblower protection law to cover post-secondary institutions in BC. Attorney General Nikki Sharma said expanding the Public Interest Disclosure Act allows employees to confidentially disclose alleged wrongdoing without fear of punishment. The province of BC has been implementing the act across the public sector since it came into force back in 2019, following an ombudsperson's report. It will now apply to employees in K-12 public schools, government ministries, independent offices of the legislature, tribunals, crown corporations, provincial health authorities, and BC Emergency Health Services. That's all of our news for now. From everyone at CFTK-TV News, I'm Cale Maslin. Thanks for watching.